ready, but I think people are going to be ready when we go. Here we go. Underway with a 12-team half PPR draft tonight, so it's not full PPR. Does it change things at the top? It doesn't. The dad drafting Jamar Chase 1.1. I would probably be drafting a running back from the 2 regardless, but especially in half point, I'm more willing to do it. And Bijan Robinson is that running back for me. I'm not going to waste any time. Jahmyr Gibbs goes 3. I think the argument for Barkley is stronger in half-point PPR, even though he catches passes too. Gibbs, I think a good amount of his value comes from catching passes. I think I looked it up the other night. He had 52, and I think Barkley had 33 last year receptions. So that's a 19-point difference in full PPR. It's even less than that. Not even a 10-point difference over the course of a season. But 10 points is 10 points. I mean, that's still more than a half point per week. So it's not nothing, but I feel like I might even go probably Barkley over Gibbs in half PPR. But it's hard to really say that for sure because I'll never play half PPR. All my leagues are full. But I'm going to try to draft this straight up as though it is half PPR because we're challenging ourselves tonight on the stream. Derrick Henry goes 1.7. See, that's a good example of a player that should get pushed up because of the half PPR format. He doesn't catch passes, but he is a great running back. And so he's almost not dinged for his lack of pass catching. I won't even say prowess. It's just that the teams he's been on has never really used it out of him. I can remember when he was with the Titans, I used to, when I'd have Derrick Henry on my team, especially for fantasy, I would watch and I'd be like, just give him a screen. He'll go 60 yards. And like, it's a whole thing where he's got to get into space. He's got to catch it. He's got to not drop it. But once he gets ahead of steam, if they can find him the space, Derrick Henry's off to the races. Nobody wants to tackle him in the open field. So I feel like they should give him one screen per quarter at least every single game, and you just don't see it very much. But that's why you see Henry up to the 7 here. McCaffrey goes 9, Genti 10. Yeah, the running backs definitely feel more promising and prevalent in a half PPR format where the reward for receptions isn't nearly as high. So we're seeing, frankly, quite a few running backs off the board. Bauer's still going in a pretty similar spot there to the 2 point, what is that, the 2.6, 2.5 to team 8. But otherwise, we get Taylor going earlier than we normally see. Jacobs certainly earlier than we normally see. It'll be interesting. The lineups are the same. It's 3 wide receivers, a flex, a tight end, 2 running backs, and a quarterback. But your reward for locking up elite wide receivers is not quite as strong. And so how does that change the way that people approach it? A name like Drake London would probably already be gone normally. When receptions are worth less, do you then pivot to quarterback sooner? Is that something that we might see tonight? It isn't. Chase Brown goes at the 2.10. I would have taken him in half PPR at the 2.11, so it's a good pick. But I think when we do consider the relative value of quarterbacks, I think quarterback values go up, especially the elite ones. If you're just punting the position, it doesn't really make a difference. So Josh Allen, strong consideration for me here. The running backs would be James Cook, Breece Hall, A.J. Brown, but we're just taking Josh Allen. I know it auto-picked me, but that's who I wanted. I put him in the queue, and I was ready. And maybe one of these receivers makes it back to me. I don't think the dad starts with 3 wide receivers in a row. It's not PPR. It's half PPR, so we'll see what he does. But, yeah, give me Josh Allen, and let's try to build one of those elite QB teams. He goes James Cook, and I wouldn't have taken Cook and Allen, so I like that he picked him because it leaves the board very open to what I could potentially look to do. We'll see what the strategy is that I deploy, but it ain't going to be waiting on quarterback. Give me Josh Allen. I think I have the best quarterback in the league for fantasy. Omarion Hampton, we are used to seeing him at the back half of the third. He goes 3.1. So after the dad picked up the number 1 receiver in fantasy football, he went with 2 straight running backs, which is interesting because normally you might get a Chase Brown or a Kyron Williams at that slot. Didn't happen here. I'm on the clock and I'm deep into it. If you are going to give me A.J. Brown in the third, I think I will take him. And he's not a guy that always gets a ton of volume. His value should be big plays, scoring touchdowns. And I'm a little bit more open to wide receivers that, the more you decrease on the value of a reception, if it goes from 1 PPR to a half PPR, the more valuable those explosive big play receivers are. And to me, A.J. Brown has, for whatever reason, maybe just like a little bit of not a stink on him, but just a little bit of uncertainty. It's almost like there's A.J. Brown fatigue from drafters if we're letting him drop into the third round. I would prefer him. I think he's actually slotted appropriately. I think it's just a product of the running backs being pushed up. I have A.J. Brown over McConkey. I love Ladd McConkey, but I think McConkey's another guy that's like, could McConkey end up with more receptions this year than A.J. Brown? That's possible because I think McConkey is sharing with less prominent wide receivers, whereas you've got Devontae Smith, you've got Saquon Barkley. I think there are more weapons on the Eagles that, A.J. Brown is going to have to share with. 82 receptions last year on 112 targets. That is the mark for Ladd McConkey, and I think he could catch 100 balls this year. Last year, a little bit down in terms of receptions, but that's because he missed games as well. A.J. Brown was 106 receptions on 158 targets the previous season. So that's, who am I kidding? He could be a target hog as well. Last year, missed 4 games, 67 receptions on 97 targets. If I go 67 divided by 13, the per game average there, 5.15, multiply that by 17. So the pace was down for sure. And that's kind of why I had in my head he's not as much of a volume guy. But I think the touchdowns can absolutely be the differentiator there. So, I don't know. Let me know. Would you go A.J. Brown or would you go Ladd McConkey this year? I can't say I've taken a ton of A.J. Brown in mock drafts so far, but I don't think it's a bad price to pay if we're talking early third. Locked up my top quarterback, got my RB1, and then I'm able to get a really compelling receiver despite waiting until round 3 to draft him. I'm excited about that. Quarterback's going a little earlier in this one so far. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but I think relative to when you just consider like the total number of fantasy points, nothing has changed for Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels compared to when we were drafting these players last night. What has changed is their peers at running back and receiver and tight end aren't going to score as many fantasy points for the receptions that they earn. So the guys that you expect to be at the top of the position, and that's the tier to me, the guys we saw go so far, those are the quarterbacks that, and look, I could talk to you about Jalen Hurts, but I'm not obviously stacking him with A.J. Brown since I've taken Allen, not even if he falls to me at 411. So he'll be kind of in that tier as well. And he goes right here, right under the gun for dead ringer. But yeah, I think that's what happens. I think you push up quarterback a little bit in this tier, and then, it probably, after that, it all kind of levels out. The rest of the quarterback crop isn't necessarily too different relative to a full PPR league. Checking out some teams here. Trevor is building a nice little McCaffrey HN JSN. JSN, I would have taken McConkey over JSN, but he was close to being picked right over here for me. The question is, am I kind of in this mode where I had been doing a lot of hero RB? Is that as advisable in a half PPR league? Or should you be getting 2 running backs early? We saw Trevor, we saw Caleb, we saw Lil Colt, and I'll even say the dad, because he's got 2 now as well, prioritize 2 of their first 3 picks on a running back. Team 12, we had Ren go with 1 running back, but then double back in the 4th round to get Trevion Henderson, sandwiched around 2 receivers. So there's definitely more running backs going early, but I can still take that same hero RB approach into half PPR. And frankly, there are names later that I like the running back talent, but they're not necessarily pass catchers. And so I'm almost more emboldened to do the hero RB thing here, especially with Bijan, who would be my RB1 on the board, given where I took him. Do I start to consider like more guys like James Conner in that traditional RB dead zone that isn't really a thing anymore, but I kind of treat it like it is because I just kind of, no, I don't want old running backs. The power of youth compels me to not take those older running backs because I just feel like last year they didn't break down to injury, but they're bound to do it this year because that's most years what we get. Micah, you're on auto pick. Even though you're here, you're going to have to click the button to get off auto pick or it's going to skip your next pick. I'm up in the 4th round. You got George Kittle still on the block. Feels like that's a little bit later than we normally see him there. The dad took 2 running backs, so he's probably planning to smash some wide receivers this time. And I'm thinking, let's just get one of our guys. We'll go Xavier Worthy. He is one of our guys at receiver. And again, may not be a guy that gets a ton of volume, but touchdowns could certainly carry the day. Hey, Tedero McMillan went 1 pick before me. I was kind of looking to see if I could find him, but I was under duress and I hadn't noticed he just went. So he's in the back of the 4th, keeping an eye on his ADP. I like that the dad took Devontae Smith because, again, I wasn't probably double stacking Eagles, so I'm totally cool with that. Another name that I think about, again, we're going explosive. We took Xavier Worthy. He's going to be sharing with a PPR guy, Rashee Rice, whenever Rashee Rice gets back. And I think Rice has even less value in this format, not because of the suspension, but because of the half PPR of it all. I'll take Jameson Williams because I think he's another guy that he won't get maybe the volume every week, but he will have huge weeks. And again, if it's half PPR, I think he's an even better pick. If you're thinking about receivers, it's not as much the possession guys that you're looking for. It's the guys in half PPR that you think can take the top off because that's where the points come from. One of my leagues is half PPR, 6 points per throwing touchdown. Are you guys making fun of me for taking Worthy in every draft? It's just an easy, and I sniped J-Mo. Well, to be fair, what happened is Lil Colt sniped McMillan from me. I was going to take McMillan, and I kept looking, and I was like, shit, I can't find him. Like, where is he? And then I thought, well, I know that I like Worthy, so let's just click him. And then I noticed Lil Colt had McMillan. So, you got me, I got you. But McLaurin was the very top of ADP the whole time, and nobody took him until wrapping back around to you. So there you go. Yeah, Kittle is a good value there in the 5th round. No question. I picked twice and let him go by. I think that's a rare exception to me saying just punt on tight end if you don't get Bowers or McBride. Middle of the 5th for Kittle, he's a fun guy to have in fantasy too. Especially if he's on primetime, there will be those George Kittle games where they don't see anybody else on the field and the defense can't do anything about it. Like Brock Purdy will zero in on Kittle because he cannot be stopped. And when you have him on your fantasy team and it's a Sunday night or a Thursday night or Monday night, you're just like, this is George Kittle's world. I'm just along for the ride. I'm just living in it. Those games are so fun. And there will be games like that again this year. George Kittle is by no means, over the hill. What's George Kittle's age? 31. Yeah, he's got more to give. So, yeah, I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good about getting George Kittle for you there in the 5th round, middle of the 5th round too. Hit that like button if you'd be so kind as to support us here. I want to make sure to let people know. I apologize on this. We do have 7 likes now, so we had to get that updated. It's a little easier to do this when I'm just like on one side of the board and I don't have to worry about picking every 3 minutes, it feels like. Ethan says he's going with a 12-team PPR league. Should I go 1 flex or 6 bench or 2 flex and 5 bench? What I like to do is 3 receivers, 1 flex. But you could also go 2 receiver, 2 flex. I think the additional starter is valuable to those types of leagues, especially PPR. There's more points to go around. Yeah, so my 12-team league, I've got a few different ones that I'm in. Mostly I'm in 14 and 16-team leagues. Thank you for the additional likes. We're up to 9. I have a 12-teamer where it is 2 wide receiver, but there's 2 flex, which basically says, like, I'm probably in full PPR starting wide receivers at both those spots, but you can do whatever you want, right? That's how I would do it. If it's only a 12-team league, for me, that's kind of like a shallow league compared to what I play in. I like to play in leagues with more people, bigger buy-in, bigger payout. You know, that's kind of my thought. But that's what I would do. Yeah, I would go with the double flex, in my opinion. A compliment of the hat. Yeah, I'm wearing a Missouri hat. We still can't pick a quarterback, but that's okay. We'll pick one next week. They want me to refresh because I'm frozen. I don't know if I can refresh, but I will take a look. It doesn't say anything notable on my end as to why it would be frozen. So maybe you refresh and we'll meet in the middle. My real money draft, we've got some questions about that. Yeah, Trevor talking in here. I have a 16-team. I'll tell you guys about my different leagues. 16-team league. It's an auction draft. Oh, the draft screen is frozen? Oh, shit. Yeah, I'm up to draft. Hopefully that didn't mess anybody up. I apologize for that, guys. All right, let's see what we're cooking with here. Do we want another running back? Aaron Jones, Caleb Johnson. I could take a little Caleb Johnson. It's too early to do it. Let's take yeah, because I can double back with a receiver. The dad's got 3 receivers. I probably could have gone receiver there. But yeah, the screen was frozen. I missed some of the things that happened. Travis Hunter, 6th rounder. Odunze still in the 6th round, despite the half-point PPR nature of it. I don't think the dad was going to take Caleb Johnson, but I want some upside. I've been a little disappointed with the upside of my RB2. And the dad, let me know if you were going to take Caleb Johnson over that Pollard pick. Let me know if I sniped you. But he was down ADP a little bit. But I think of that group, there's the allure of the unknown with him. Like Mixon, like Aaron Jones is probably the smartest RB pick from that range. And he goes Addison, and that's where I effed up because he was the receiver I wanted and would have taken. So I have to, you know what? Screw it. Nope, this is easy. You're going to take my guy. I will take the guy that everybody behind me wanted. It's the 7th round, guys. Fair game. I've said all along, if Igbuka's, if he's there in the 7th round, now what I've normally said is I need him to not be my flex, but all right, so hey, there you go. The dad was going to take Caleb Johnson. Again, I don't think you can start him, and so my lineup is going to need some work. My lineup is going to need some real work because week 1 is going to be Igbuka either starting or I'm going to pick up like a Christian Kirk late that I can plug into my lineup. In fact, I need to get a better handle on week 1 matchups so that I kind of know what's going on. Hit that like button. We got 27 people on stream, just 9 likes. We can get to 10 likes for sure. And subscribe to the channel. Get into the live chat. Let us know your fantasy questions, your thoughts. Just comment. I'm going to read all of them. Week 1 NFL schedule. I'm typing into Google because I want to kind of see, is there a player that I should be thinking about because he's got a great round 1 matchup? Like Texans-Rams, that's a week 1 game. I'm thinking Christian Kirk. Like if I've got Igbuka or I've got Jordan Addison and I don't really want to, like I can't start Addison. Do I want to start Igbuka? Maybe it's fine after the Jalen McMillan injury. Maybe now Igbuka's just going to be in their lineup and there's nothing we can do about it. He's going to be great. But if there are players like that, Caleb Johnson is a really good example of that too, where it's like, I might want him a lot by week 8, but I don't think you can start Caleb Johnson week 1. Now I'm going to stock my bench with more RB2 backup handcuff types, and I'll just have to pick one for the matchup in that opening week unless we get a really good drum beat on Caleb Johnson. But I thought in that range, and what's interesting is it took another round or so, half a round for Aaron Jones to go. It took another 6 or 7 picks for Tracy to go. A lot of receivers went after Pollard. But for me, from that range, Caleb Johnson is the upside play in December. Like, could Aaron Jones hold up until December? For sure. I've always enjoyed Aaron Jones. Like him better in full PPR.
Come on.
But I think at this point, give me a rookie and give me a shot at more upside. Because that's what I've got a whole bench for. You know, give me a bunch of shots at, in case I'm wrong with my RB2 or my flex, maybe some of those other guys can step in. But I'd rather take a swing, especially in the draft. You got waivers, you've got all sorts of stuff. Life is too short to be drafting, you know. I was going to say Jacoby Myers, but I didn't want to pick on anybody in particular. But life is too short for me to be drafting Jacoby Myers. Granted, in a full PPR, I think it's a little bit more, you know, sensible. But am I drafting, and I'm not picking on Micah, but am I like straining to draft the second option for Geno Smith on a Raiders passing game when they also just drafted Genty? And I'm assuming the first option is Bowers. I'm not really trying to do that. We go Barkley, Pacheco. You stacked him with Mahomes. It's a good team. I was just taking like a shot on Golden instead. But this is my theory going into a draft. Let's hold some receipts. Somebody can hold me accountable because we could have a whole season and then go, hey, by the way, all that stuff you said in August was really dumb. And then I'll have to look back and go, yeah. And last year there was probably a lot of that because I wasn't telling people to draft James Conner and Joe Mixon. I wasn't drafting those guys myself. You know? Yeah, Mike, it does kind of feel like I'm picking on you. Lil Colt said he took Igbukah in the 5th round in his home league for that reason. I can't knock it. Get your guy. There's other guys in the 5th round that I feel a lot better about the volume for. But talent-wise, I mean, he's as talented as a lot of those guys. For sure. All right, 4 picks away. The running back room is gross. Or I should say, like, the running back ADP feels very gross. But we could use another one. We also could use a receiver to put into our flex. I'm still a wide receiver in the flex kind of guy when it comes to half PPR. Cooper Kupp is still there in the 8th round, but that doesn't really feel like a thing. We don't need a quarterback. Stop looking there. We've had a tight end run. That's been a little painful. We're going to wait on tight end, though. 15 seconds. I'm not taking Godwin. I'm not taking Kupp. Not taking Shakir. Gosh dang, man. All right, let's just take Jordan Mason. I'll take a receiver on the way back, but I just did not feel like the receivers were somebody that I should really prioritize over a Jordan Mason, who I'm not huge on, and I never really take him in PPR. But in half PPR, could he be the goal line back? He's a little younger than Aaron Jones. I'm not a huge Jordan Mason believer, but I think it matches with the Caleb Johnson pick. I can start Jordan Mason in week 1, projecting more volume than Caleb Johnson gets. What's crazy, though, is the dad taking Trey Benson. Because, frankly, I hadn't even scrolled down that far to think about him, but the dad is on the turn. The dad knows, the guy may not be getting back to me. So that's crazy to me. But it's not necessarily wrong. Man, what's the injury to Josh Downs? Does anybody know? Misses a preseason game, hamstring, soft tissue. Jaden Higgins or Josh Downs. Let's take the rookie. When in doubt, just take the rookie. So between Higgins and Igbukah, like my concern with Higgins is we think he's going to start, but what if he doesn't? And it's like, okay, hopefully Igbukah does. Downs was, if he's healthy, the pick was Downs for me. For the same logic as the Lil Colt pick on Michael Pittman. Daniel Jones is their quarterback. The passing game is going to be fine. They'll have to throw the ball. It's not going to be like the Jets offense with Justin Fields. Pittman's a good receiver. Downs is a good receiver. Like, those guys both might end up being just fine. I just can't get myself to pick like a Juwan Jennings or a Godwin. The Colt guys were more tempting to me, and I faded back on my comfort zone of like, rookie, upside, whatever. He's on the bench. Who cares? That's always going to be my general direction, is go for the younger player that we haven't seen his best yet. And it's not to say we've seen the best of Josh Downs, but we've seen Josh Downs, and we know he's pretty good. What if Higgins is like the guy opposite Nico Collins, and the Texans can't run the football, and they throw it 45 times a game? Well, that would be very good for Jaden Higgins. What if he's not? Well, that's why he's on my bench. That's why we drafted him in the 9th round instead of the 5th round. Which, by the way, is the risk of drafting Ibuka in the 5th round. Keon Coleman, I like Keon Coleman just about as much as I like Jaden Higgins, just about as much as I like, some of these other guys in that range. Really, it's just those two, though. I'm looking at who else was drafted around there. Jaden Reed went pretty well before. Dead Ringer was thinking he was getting Benson at the 11th pick of the 9th round, which still hasn't happened, and Benson went almost a full round earlier. So that makes me even more glad I took Jordan Mason when I did, because now I'm not really panicky at running back at all. I locked in Bijan. He's the guy you want. He's number one. And then I took a rookie upside guy who I still think is going to be backseat driving to Jaylen Warren for a while. But I'm thinking more second half when it comes to that Caleb Johnson pick, which, by the way, means you have to be willing to be patient. You're not drafting Caleb Johnson if you're not holding him on your bench for 8 weeks. Seriously. You have to be willing with these rookies. I would say very similar to Jaden Blue, although you could have an instance where the Cowboys, go to Javonte or Miles Sanders, and it's like a timeshare between those two. Caleb Johnson is at least going to play some, I would think. Unless it's like, I know who they pick up. Like, they have Kenny Gainwell now. I don't think Kenny Gainwell is going to be anything more than what he was with the Eagles. So I feel like there's still, you can dream on the hope of the upside there with Caleb Johnson, but you have to be willing to wait with it. I think the same is true if you're drafting Cam Scadaboo. I didn't mean to call him a scam. Sorry, Caleb. Cody Schrader with good PR. Is that what you said? Jaden Blue going is kind of a similar conversation. Looking for the other running backs to which that would apply. I think that's about it so far. But, Caleb Johnson's probably the first one. If I took him in the back end of the 6th round and you're talking about 8 weeks before you can drop him, boy, you might have drafted the wrong player, because that's a lot of draft capital for a guy. So, that's a reach for sure. But, again, I think it's a reach on upside, trusting myself as a fantasy manager to come up with an answer if it's not him. And valuing the potential of what Caleb Johnson could become by week 10 more than what I know Pollard is going to be in weeks 1 through 9 and then 10 through 17. It's going to be what it's going to be with him. Quinshon Judkins was the other one. He's taken 6.1. A little rich for my blood, but it's the same concept. And Lil Colt takes Braylon Allen from me. That would have been my pick. I was thinking about Braylon Allen with the Higgins pick, but I was like, no. Let's see where Braylon Allen goes, because that'll be interesting. I'm never going to play in a half PPR, but Braylon Allen is more valuable in a half PPR than he would be in a full, for sure. Man, oh man. Well, I'm staring down some running backs here. Let's take Garendo. Just another one of those guys in that bench running back category. The dad grabs Pitts. I could have taken him, but I was a little bit locked into... I got sniped. I'll be honest. I got sniped on the Braylon Allen thing. So Lil Colt and I have been doing it to each other all draft. I don't know if I'm going to be doing it to him this time. Let's see where we are. Receiver, we got 5. I don't really need 6 in half PPR. 5 might be enough. Godwin's still sitting there, though. But he doesn't really match with my bench of receivers that I have. Oh, God. Give me Kraft. Let me have him. Did it work? Oh, I think it did. I think it gave me Kraft. Whoa, that was close. It was like I was clicking through it to try to get him. Yeah, Krosky Merritt, people still thinking that's going to be a thing. He's taken there in the 11th. I needed a tight end in Kraft after the Pitts pick. I was like, wait a minute, there's a guy out there that I like at tight end. And I think he's more reliable than Colston Loveland. Loveland, is exciting, but because I went a little bit heavy into the rookie upside with Higgins, Igbuka, Caleb Johnson. Let me get a tight end that I know is going to be more involved. Yeah, Trevor getting Mark Andrews. I didn't mean to put a clown on you there. It was on a thumbs up, and then it moved to a clown. That's a good value for. That's certainly a good value for Mark Andrews. I don't know how much the likely thing affects me or doesn't when it comes to that. But likely, obviously, with the injury, but he could very well be back. What did they say? Like, miss a few weeks, maybe week 1. Probably won't play week 1, but like, I would still draft likely, honestly. Especially as we get deeper into this draft. And I don't know if I've seen, has he gone? Has anybody taken him? Not yet. He'd be somebody that I would pick a last round pick on just to stash in an IR spot. Godwin finally did go. You know, I just, it feels like every time I do a half PPR, I'm underwhelmed by my team at the end, no matter what. Because I'm normally like, oh man, look at my receivers. They're so good. And now I'm like, yeah, they're good, but I don't even know if that matters as much as it normally does. So to retrain your brain can be a little complicating. What did he say? I see good steak on Jacory. Good steal. I kept reading that going, what is he talking about, a steak? And by the way, Big Lou, you're on auto pick. I don't know if you meant to be. But you got to, like, once you miss one, you have to click back to get rid of the auto pick. Yeah, Jacory, I mean, honestly, I haven't built up a queue. I'm on stream, so I'm not, like, showing. I would probably keep Jacory in like a little short list of players to know that they're down in ADP. I think by the time any draft I do, we're gonna know more about this Bijan Robinson thing, and so it won't be like people will be sleeping on Krosky Merritt. It'll just be what it is. But I don't know. I'm happy with my one dynasty share, and I'm not really chasing him. But that certainly, you know, for a little Colts team could end up being. I mean, you got Gibbs, Chase Brown, Braylon Allen, and Krosky Merritt. Those are some really, really good running backs. McMillan, McLaurin, Judy Pearsall, Pittman. I don't like the receivers as much, but I like the first couple, and I don't need to like him as much because it's not quite as valuable. That is a team that, you know, if Braylon Allen or Krosky Merritt performs, he can start a running back in the flex. And you got Lamar Jackson. So yeah, Lil Colt did a really nice job with this draft. Tyler Warren's always a fun tight end pick. I like Tucker Kraft this year, though. I don't know what it is, but I think that's a very solid late pick at tight end. I think he's going to have a good year. I love my receivers. A.J. Brown, Xavier Worthy, Jamison Williams, Igbuka. Yeah, I'll go to war with those guys. Running backs, I think I don't feel as good about my running backs post Bijan just because I'm drafting in a different style, knowing that it's not full PPR. I'll take one more running back for sure before I get out of here. Maybe I stack up two because I've got the number one quarterback. I feel good about that. I like my tight end enough to not need a second one. I'll just roll Tucker Kraft and we'll see what happens. Lineup-wise, by week 6, Igbuka's going to be, taking the league by storm. Love Brown-worthy JMO. I just need an RB2, and I drafted a rookie one. Could I have gone in another direction? Frankly, I'm drafting more Benson than Jordan Mason, but I think Jordan Mason is more likely to eat into legitimately Aaron Jones than Benson is to Connor, but both are going to happen to an extent. I just didn't think Benson was at risk of being taken, and clearly other people didn't either. But people are starting to get, hip to what he could bring to the table, so that's all good. Yeah, I mean, Krosky Merritt, if I'd have been thinking about it, might have been a nice pick, but I also wanted Kraft, so I don't have a problem with that. Krosky Merritt over Garendo, yeah, I probably would say that I would rank it that way. Only because of Garendo's injury, though. I like Garendo as a handcuff, and he will get snaps if he's healthy, because they're not going to ask CMC to be the workhorse because they know how valuable he is to keep healthy. Okay, I'm going to take at least one more running back. Do I take Algier? Do I just take the backup to my guy and say that, man, if Bijan goes down, I'm hurting? I got news for you. If Bijan goes down, I'm hurting even if I do have Tyler Algier. So let's take upside. Let me take a pick that fades the Judkins pick, because I'm not convinced that Sampson doesn't get as many carries this year as Judkins. I don't know that he will for sure, but one of them's getting drafted in the back of the 11th, and one of them was the first pick of the 6th round. So I like Sampson at Tennessee. I think the scheme that the Vols run makes a running back sometimes look better than he is. Jalen Wright, an example of that from the Dolphins the year prior. But I'll take my shot on Sampson. I was impressed by him when what I've seen of him when he was in college. Probably just going to round it out with another running back. Is there a receiver that I really want? Could go like the Isaac Tesla route. Other guys that I would think about are probably long gone. I like Dowdle. Let's go Will Shipley. I want to say that while I'm not fading Saquon Barkley, I actually think Will Shipley is another one of those guys. Again, last year was the year of the running back where everybody got a workload, nobody got hurt in a significant way. I feel like teams are going to be a little bit more careful with some of their prize workhorses a year following all the work that those guys got. So I like grabbing a bunch of RB2s that could end up with their own role carved out, plus great contingency value in case of an injury. So I went way heavier into running back here than I normally do. Yeah, Big Lou, I've been telling you you're on auto. You got to watch the stream, big dog. Yeah, he was on auto, but that happens, I suppose. We'll grade the teams here. A couple guys ended up on auto, but that's okay. We will give out draft grades, so stick around if you are. And by the way, I was way behind. I was delinquent in. We don't have 27 likes. How many likes do we have? I was 14 likes. I was definitely behind on the like counter today, guys. It's an idea. It's a work in progress. If you post the likes on the screen, you probably ought to make sure you update them when people do like it. But let's go ahead and talk about the draft that we had here and whose teams I like the best. Grading it from a half PPR perspective. Let's get myself off the screen so we can see everybody's teams. Half PPR, starting with team 1. Jamar Chase, Devontae Adams, Smith and Addison, Shakir, Christian Kirk, and Hollywood Brown. Lots of receivers there. But I do need to probably read the running backs first in half PPR, don't you think? James Cook, Marion Hampton, Pollard, Benson. I like the late picks at quarterback and tight end. I think it's a good team. It's like a B at least. I don't know that you needed as many receivers as you drafted. Like, I think you could have gotten away with just Kirk and no Hollywood and maybe even another running back instead of Shakir there. But your running backs are good. Benson, Pollard, Marion Hampton, James Cook. Yeah, it's a high B, B plus probably. It's a solid team. I still think drafting from the 1-1 is a benefit, even in half PPR. All right. Bijan, Caleb Johnson, Jordan Mason, Garendo, Sampson, Shipley. We've got a lot of darts that we're throwing at an RB2. If one of our 5 running backs can be a legit RB2, pair it with Bijan, have the best quarterback in football. Tucker Kraft is a very passable tight end 1. A.J. Brown, Worthy, J-Mo, Egbuka could end up being a really lethal receiving core. I actually like the team quite a bit. I think there's some other. If I had Braylon Allen instead of, or Krosky Merritt instead of, I would be more in my comfort zone. But I think it's still like, I would say a dead heat between me and the dad. I'm not going to say it's a B plus for sure, but it's like in that, it's like an 87 out of 100. I feel very good about my draft because I know who's anchoring my team. I know I've got Allen. I know I've got Bijan, and I like my receivers a lot. And I'll live with a rookie receiver in my flex to begin with. And I'm just hoping Jordan Mason falls into the end zone or Caleb Johnson takes the RB1 job in Pittsburgh. But I would be able to do some damage with that team. Love this start in a half PPR to go Gibbs, Chase Brown. McLaurin, McMillan, Judy, Pearsall, Pittman, Lambert Smith is fun at the end. Allen, Krosky, Merritt, taking the kid from Rutgers on the Bears, which is interesting because Swift may not keep the job. That's a really good draft. Yep. I think that's just maybe an A. I like that team the best of the three, and I like the first two pretty good. Yeah, I mean, you go quarterback. You had a little bit of everything, little Colt. That was a good draft. I just love Gibbs, Chase Brown, and half PPR. I think that's a really good start because you're not when you wait on receiver, like receivers weren't as strong here, but it's still a good group. Maybe A minus. Like receivers are a little bit weak, but I think all of them are very capable of scoring for you. And Pittman as a 5 is good too, because then you can plug him in if Pearsall doesn't pan out or whatever. And you don't lose as much by waiting on receiver because it's half PPR. A minus. Very good draft, though. Saquon Pacheco. I like the running backs. I don't like Bijan Robinson, but I don't like Najee Harris. Woody Marks and Ollie Gordon could be right, but they're like dart throws. London McConkey, I like quite a bit. Metcalf, I just can't get on board with the Aaron Rodgers thing. I don't know what to make of that. Mahomes and Njoku, it's it might be my least favorite of the 4 so far, but I don't think that makes it a bad draft. It's at least in the B range, B minus to B from Micah. Again, like Godwin late, you throw him on IR and pick up somebody else. That actually is decent strategy, so I can't knock that. You lose me with the Najee Harris. I just don't think Najee Harris is going to have relevance. He's got one eye. And if I'm wrong, then you can tell me, hey, I made a good pick and you were wrong. Kyron Williams, Kamara, okay. Dobbins, Chubb, ugh. I just don't like the old running backs. But they're both supposed to be like starters, so what do I know? It could work out. Lamb, Higgins, Olave, Golden, Keenan Allen. You got the Kittle pick that I enjoyed. Dak feels like a little bit of a reach, but you're stacking him with Lamb, so that makes sense. It's about on the par with Micah there. Not a bad draft. Give me like a B minus on that. For me, it's the running backs. It's 2 of the first 4 picks are running backs, and I don't know about Kamara's value quite as much when it's not full PPR. I like Kyron. Like Lamb, Kyron, Higgins, I think is a perfectly suitable start. I think there's risk though down the roster, and not the bench to be able to make up for some of the risk that I see. So that would be B minus for me. Jefferson, Evans, Adunze, Cup, some bench receivers. Bucky, Harvey, Harvey kind of feels like the Caleb Johnson thing, but a little bit more draft capital, but more likelihood to contribute. You stacked Evans with Mayfield. I'm in a wait and see mode on this. That's another kind of B minus for me. And we've had 6 drafts. I don't think any of these teams are bad, but I'm looking at, well, you can plug in Tracy for Harvey if you need to early. I don't mind that. I think that Eckler serves that same purpose. I think it's wasted picks to go Palmer, Leggett at the end. Maybe not Leggett, but Palmer, I don't really know. He's just not the late round guy I'm taking. So B minus there. No bad drafts yet. Jaden Daniels, Laporta, that's kind of fun. Henry Walker, Connor, not my type, but I can see the vision. Ramondre, last round pick, I cannot see the vision. And same thing it's like he's got more value, Ramondre does, than being picked in the last round. But you already kind of stocked up on those old running backs. But maybe that's the theory. It's like, well, give me 5 of them. 2 will get hurt, but the other 3 will play. Okay, that's fair. Went older at wide receiver, though, with Diggs, Debo as well. Ayuk's on this team. Thielen's on this team. I'm only knocking you for age, but that's more of a C+ to B- for me. But that's the exact type of draft that would have smashed last year, and I wouldn't have liked it. So don't worry. I think you could be in fine shape. Breece Hall, Montgomery, Aaron Jones, ETN, Bigsby, Algier. There's a lot of running backs on this team that it's going to be frustrating because they'll all be on your bench. They'll have no trade value, but you'll also not want to drop them because there is some value to each of those guys. So I think you stocked up well. You're just going to be a little light at receiver. Amon-Ra and DJ Moore is really good. Luther as your 3, Jennings as your flex. But you can flex a running back, and you will. So Bowers, Burrow, that's kind of fun. B- to B on that one. Which, again, that puts you in kind of close to maybe the middle, maybe bottom half of the middle of the draft so far. McCaffrey, Achane, I like a lot. JSN, Flowers, Pickens, Hunter, I like a lot. Me and Trevor think a lot alike, so that's not surprising. Charbonnet, I thought was a really good pick for RB3. Davis, don't care about Rashad White, but a lot of the upside running backs have probably been picked over by that point anyway. Like, I would have gone Algier over Rashad White, but I'm sure he's got a reason. I mean, I think is Bucky a little banged up, or is it Rashad that's banged up? I don't know about Rashad White. You have to text me and explain that one. Yeah, he's got a groin injury too. Sean Tucker even over Rashad White. That's the one pick I didn't like. But otherwise, pretty much a smash on this draft. Don't care about your bench wide receivers, but yeah, I mean that's a B plus to an A minus potentially. That's probably second place behind Low Colt right now. And it's the two teams that took elite running backs at the beginning. I would say that Low Colt's running backs are just more likely to get through the season healthy, and that's the only difference. They both have an RB3 that I like. Yeah, so Low Colt leads, Trevor in second, me and the dad tied for third, something like that. Caleb goes Genty Taylor, but I'm not going to like his receivers quite as much, I bet. Tyreek, Garrett Wilson, he has to catch a pass from Justin Fields. Rice, I love, but suspended, not as valuable when it comes to half PPR than full. Ridley, kind of the same thing. He's not suspended. I guess technically neither is Rice. Mixon, Scattaboo, Spears. You know, it's a B. It's just like a B for me. But Caleb went home. He does not worry about it. He told me I was too nice to his grade the last time. All right, B minus then, Caleb. There you go. All right, we had one guy go double wide receiver. Dead Ringer went double wide receiver to start. He's the only one that did it. Got him Neighbors and Puka Nacua, which again, Puka's normally like 1.10 or sooner, 1.8. So that's very good value from the 11 and gets him in the second round. Sutton as your 3. Chuba Hubbard, Swift, Jalen Warren. You're probably starting those 3. One of them's your flex because Trey Harris, Bateman, Alec Ayamanor, I'm not necessarily buying into all that. Not really into Jerome Ford. Did get Jalen Hurts. I think you'll be lacking a little bit. It's tough to go. It feels like you went 0 RB, but you didn't. You spent a third rounder on Chuba Hubbard. So that's not one of my favorite drafts. That's more toward the C+ category for me. But I do really like Neighbors and Puka. I just wish you would have been able to find a way, like, I don't know, maybe I'm just a hater on Chuba Hubbard, but I think there would have been better ways to, like, the first 5 picks are really solid enough, but you lose me a little bit by allocating so much resource to tight end when you needed probably more at running back. But then you did get Warren and Blue. It could work out very well. Maybe I'm too harsh. C+ to B-, probably B-. Again, like I said, I think everybody that's been drafting with us there's not anybody that's just like a dud. You know, people know what they're doing in these drafts. All right, let me click it and find team 12 here and wrap up our conversation on this one. Appreciate you guys who have joined us, who have stayed with the stream. I'll read some YouTube comments after I finish upgrading the team 12 here. Jacobs, Trevion Henderson, Judkins, Tootin, Jalen Wright. Go with the Tua Tagovailoa at quarterback, stacked with Waddle, Kelsey. Receivers are Collins, Harrison, Waddle. That's a pretty good top 3. Reed, you took later, but that's a pretty good flex. I like Mims and Shaheed off the bench. They feel like the same guy. Mims and Shaheed, offenses that aren't quite considered to be elite, players that are probably undervalued. They can take a deep ball. I don't mind that team. If Trevion Henderson hits, I could very well see that being a productive team. That's probably like a B for me. You know, and it's like when I graded against my team, I'd prefer my top running back. I've got a quarterback that he doesn't. I feel like my receiving core can go up against his. So, yeah, that's more a B. I would say I'm in that, like, 5th place range, 4th or 5th. I'm a playoff team. Rent Grenades, that's like the cut line of playoffs or not playoffs, in my opinion there. All right, let's check out some of the comments here as it pertains to... I keep clicking the wrong thing on my screen, which is making me delay. Some of the comments on YouTube. Roll through. Terry slide from the mid-third to now the 5th round is so saddening. Yeah, I think it's mostly like the contract stuff, right? That's all it is. Yeah, I'm sorry. I had said earlier I was going to tell you guys about my leagues. 16-team auction. I've got a 14-team auction super flex, which means 28 quarterbacks can be in the lineup, which means 32 to 35 will be drafted. And I have a 14-team snake draft. It's really my only snake draft. No, I've got two. 14-team snake draft. It's kind of my big league. That's going to be on Labor Day. And I have a 12-team on the 29th that is a snake draft. That's the one I was telling everybody about that had two flex. All of them are full PPR. One of them is... And then I've got an auction that I need to get rolling as well. That's a 12-teamer. But it's shorter lineups, so it's a little bit thinner, which is fun because it's an auction, so you can kind of play that stars and scrubs strategy without really having to play too many scrubs. Because you can just say, I'm going to draft a starting lineup if I want to. But then some people that draft a balanced team, they have a full bench, they can trade all year long. And that ends up being the benefit for those guys.